Hi everybody, and welcome to today's video. You clicked on this video because you saw the title, and I bet you're wondering, okay, how can there be a good side and how can I embrace the poor man mentality? Well, I want you to hear me out. Don't just go by the title and then start typing away. I want you to watch the whole video and then you can give me your response. This video is one that I've been wanting to make for a very long time. It's been on my heart, and I want to share with you a different approach to the poor man mentality. First thing I want to say is, you are welcome to disagree with me, but you have to do it in a respectful way. We're all going to play really nice in the sandbox of life, okay? So here we go. I'm standing in front of my 1963 double wide. Now, my double wide has depreciated to the point where there is no worth in the home that I have. I have a 1-acre property, which has a little bit of value to it. I'm standing in front of these old windows to prove a point to all of you. These are all cracked. They have Scotch tape to keep the windows from cracking even more. We have tape over here. We have tape on all these windows. Now, if I was going to go to the bank and say, I would like to get new windows, the bank would say, no way, we're not giving you any money, because I live in a mobile home that's depreciated. I could try to get a loan from the bank based on the acre land that we have, but they would say no as well. I'm saying this with fact and with proof. The bank won't give me any loan for anything using my property because it's a mobile home, it's depreciated, and the land and the days that we're living in now will not give any money towards a mobile home property with land. So here we go. Now, I do have a credit card, and I have a good credit card. In other words, I could buy these new windows on my credit card, but then I would be going into debt. And there is the difference. I have, in my videos, many times said poor man meals, poor man this, poor man that. Poor mouthing. Why am I poor mouthing? Because I have a different philosophy of life than what a lot of you do. And I want to share with you my way of thinking. This is my way of thinking. I am not trying to convince you of anything. I'm just trying to open your horizons a little bit on a different thought process. So, poor man thinking, how it can be a blessing and how you can embrace it. If you can embrace the poor man thinking when you have money, the day will come someday that you may not have money. And then all of that poor man thinking can spring into action. It's as simple as that. So I live a poor man's life. When I talk about poor man, I'm not talking about poor in spirit or poor in family or poor in not having love. I'm talking about financially poor. So when you go to the bank and you sit down with the banker and you write everything out, what you own, I'm poor. I'm a poor man. When I say poor man, that is, in quotations, that is financial part of me is poor man. But I'm a rich man because I have the poor man philosophy. Wait a minute. How can this be? How can I have the poor man philosophy, be a rich man? Because I believe we are coming to a time where a lot of people are going to be poor. I'm not going deep into that because that's not what my channel is about. My channel is about encouraging other people. By talking poor, I'm actually encouraging you to think outside the box and to think of a different mindset. So here's the deal. When I talk about poor, I'm talking about a way of life to get used to a way of life because someday you may have to live it. That's not being negative, that's being real living. Because there are a lot of people who are upper middle class that all of a sudden one day found themselves poor. How? They have $1 million house that they can't afford. They have electric they can't afford. They have property taxes they can't afford. All of a sudden they lost their business. They lost their jobs. Within weeks, they become poor. I see that. I work at a food pantry where I see people who come in Cadillacs and come in fancy vehicles and don't have anything because they lost it all, but they still have it, but they can't afford it. And eventually it will be gone. If they had a poor mentality, they wouldn't have their fancy vehicles, they wouldn't have had their fancy houses, they wouldn't have had all that. They would have lived like they were poor when they weren't poor, because you never know when you're going to be poor. See, that is a different philosophy. I am poor-mouthing, but I'm not poor-mouthing in a la 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 la, play the violin in a poor way and say, oh, so bad, Tessie. I'm poor-mouthing in a way to open up your horizons to get you prepared to a life that you may have to live that you're not used to living. So here is the scale. Just think about this for one moment. You can live a high life, or you can live the middle-class life and enjoy it and not think about losing it. Or you can have the mentality of, I'm poor, even if you're not classified as being poor, but you live that way because you want to establish a lifestyle in case something happens. Here's your scale. Now, I would rather be on this scale, and that way, if something does happen in the economy, which right now at the taping of this video, we are having banks closing due to certain situations, but you don't know how far that's going to go and how that's going to affect you. We have people losing their 401ks. We have people that are losing their jobs. We have people that are losing their life savings in the stock market and things like that. I'd rather live down here, be comfortable, but live down here. And that way, when the tidal wave comes like this, I'm still down here and I'm not being affected. Or I can live like this and not worry about it. Then all of a sudden, when the tidal wave comes, boom, I'm crashed. I am crashed and I don't know how to get out of it. I'm also going to go in the kitchen and show you something I did a video on, and people had a lot to say about it. And I said exactly what I thought. And I want to share with you another way of thinking. I go on the camera and I say, poor man's meal. If you're poor, you eat this. And all of a sudden, a lot of people were saying, I wouldn't eat that even if I was starved. Or, I'm sorry, but I have to be starved to eat that. Exactly. Think of yourself as poor. Think of yourself as starving. Get yourself accustomed and acquainted to that kind of food. So what happens if the worst thing happens? The worst thing happens, you're prepared. Nothing happens, you have a life lesson on living on less. Take it from me. I live on less. I had the poor mentality, but it has changed me so much. I have learned to produce and to do things that I never thought I could do because I had this mentality. So the next time that you watch a video and somebody says, don't ever have the poor man mentality, you need to double think that. Because it's probably somebody that's an upper class or a rich person saying that, and you never know when their ladder is going to fall. You just never know. Some of the highest elites in this world have fallen really hard, and the higher you are, the quicker you can fall. It's okay to have goals. It's okay to want to have extra money. It's okay to work towards these things. But in the long run, it's better in the economy that we're living in now to assume that your life is poor and to live below your means and establish that lifestyle than to try to live above your means, because you simply will not be able to afford it. Now I'm going to meet you in the kitchen and I'm going to show you something. On this. And I'll talk about the poor man's meal. Poor man's this, or if you're poor, you can eat this. I've had a lot of people that have said a lot of things about it. Now I am using this as an example. So somebody said they would not eat this unless they were starved. That's the whole idea. The whole idea is to think of yourself as you were starving. Get used to eating foods like this, because you never know when you may have to glean and use food that you normally would, put your nose up to it. So this is what the difference is. If you get yourself accustomed to eating all kinds of different foods, then your life will be easier if you would be forced to eat beans and rice. See, the problem with a lot of preppers today is what they do is they stock up on beans and rice and beans, but they don't eat them. They put them in their buckets, they put their oxygen absorbers in there, and they set them away for a rainy day, for when the economy would get bad. But they're not accustomed to eating it. All of a sudden, the rainy day comes and the economy is bad. They pull out these beans and rice and they don't like them because they're not accustomed to eating it. They don't know how to eat food that they're not used to. When you get to the point where you can't afford going to a restaurant or going to fast food, or you can't afford the food at the grocery store, you're going to have probably lower quality food depending on where you live. So in the East Coast in the wintertime, we have lower quality food because we don't have fresh food all year round that's local. So you have to learn to eat things that you wouldn't be used to. I had a lady tell me one time, she said, well, she eats everything that's fresh. Well, that's great if you live in the South and you can get everything fresh. But in a down economy, you won't be able to afford that, especially if you're living on the Northeast. So you have to accustom yourself to eating different foods. Yes, the poor man mentality. It can actually change your life in a positive way. While everybody is scrambling around if things would get bad, you are established in your lifestyle. You have become acquainted to it. You have become used to it. And you know what? The shock won't be so bad on you. That is what my channel is about. I will continue to use the word poor in some of my titles to open the dialogue to let you know that the word poor is not that bad. The word poor is different depending on what you associate it with. The word poor can be totally different. Am I poor? No, not to certain people, but to other people, I look really, really poor. It's an association that can change with whoever you're around. Of course, in the countries where my parents did missionary work and I traveled to third world countries, I'm very rich. But if you go to the cities, or you go to other places where they have $1 million homes and they're doctors and lawyers and realtors and all that, I would look extremely poor. So it's all in the mindset and it's all in what you associate poor being. When I say the word poor living, I'm not using that in a derogatory sense. I'm using that in an uplifting sense because I want you to have that mentality so that way you're prepared when times would get hard. If times never get hard, then you're used to living a certain way that will actually give you a lot of enjoyment because you're learning to think outside the box and you're learning to take value in the little things in life. This is just something for you to think about, and I hope that it gives you some food for thought and maybe changes your opinion on the word poor. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow.